right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Monday, January 22nd Select Board meeting. I'll call it to order right now for the Select Board. We have a few announcements and board openings. We have Community Preservation Committee, one opening. Council on Aging, two associate openings. Finance and Advisory Committee, one associate opening. The Historic District Commission, two openings for 3-year terms, and two openings for a 2-year term. One of those 2-year terms must be a resident of the Historic District, and one must be a resident Realtor in town. One opening on the Human Rights Commission, excuse me, one opening on the Planning Board for an associate member, and one associate opening on the Zoning Board of Appeals. We also have nomination papers available in Town Hall, or excuse me, at Patton Homestead at the clerk's office for any open positions on elected boards and committees, and papers returned by the 17th, the 22nd, you said? The 22nd of February, by end of business day. And now we have time for public comment, 3 minutes on topics not already on the agenda. If you're joining us online, you can raise your hand. If you're in person, just come up to the podium, state your name and address, and you can speak. If not, we'll continue on. All right, we have one item on our consent agenda today, which is an approve a request for Melody Miles Road Race, May 25th, 24. We've done this many times in the past. All the information is in our packet tonight. Anybody wants to make a motion to approve that?
So moved.
All right, a second by anybody?
Second.
All right, second by Tom. Any discussion? No? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Ayes have it. All right, on to our agenda. We have up first, approve bond sale for funding of town hall and other projects, and review the new financial policy, debt management with Finance Director Wendy Markowitz. And Wendy, welcome.
Well, thank you very much. Oh. Okay, you got it? Okay. So, yes, there were some projects that we needed to go bond for. 2.8 million was for water, 433,000 for town hall, and 4 million for CPA, which was for the town hall project. So Hilltop went to market for $7.2 million, and we ended up with 10 bids, just so you know. And of the 10 bids, the lowest bid of 3.0208 was awarded to Raymond James and Associates. The true interest cost came out to 3.022% overall. So the total was $7,370,033, of which 730,000 was bond premium, which means that that amount gets taken off of the borrowing. So Hamilton actually only borrowed $6.6 million. So 7.3 million was the total bond, but Hamilton only needs to pay back the 6.6 million, and then of course the interest on top of that. So total, with the par amount of 6.6 million and the interest, total debt service of $9,470,976, and that is over the course of 20 years. No, the average life, I'm sorry, is 10 years of all the bonds, all the projects together.
And what was the final rate, Wendy?
The final rate, the true interest cost, they call it, is 3.022%.
That's pretty good considering. I was talking to Joe the other day when we were looking at this, that I think the school for the athletic fields was what, 3.8 or 3.9 that they said on their bond?
3.7, yeah, somewhat, something like that.
Yes. So they said it was perfect timing in this market.
There you go. Nice.
We like that. All right, I'm just trying to get through all of the numbers here.
Did you say the total interest of it all over the 20 years, or is that in here?
Yes, I have it right here. Hold on 1 second. The
like
interest is 2 million, total interest, 2,830,976.
Got it, thank you.
Sure.
That's good.
Any questions from the board to Wendy while she's on the hot seat here. And who's our clerk right now? Is it,
Guessing that's you. Is that your phone number?
so we need to do our vote. It's on page 45 of the packet.
Needs to be read aloud.
Yeah, it needs to be read aloud. And we should, yeah, and we should vote on it first. So somebody wants to make a motion to accept our bond premiums, et cetera, and then we can read the vote and make it official. Anybody want to make a motion?
So moved.
Perfect. Second?
Second.
All right. All right, Tom, you ready?
All right. Vote of the Select Board. I, the Clerk of the Select Board of the Town of Hamilton, Massachusetts, the town, certify that at a meeting of the Board held January 22nd, 2024, of which meeting all members of the Board were duly notified and at which a quorum was present, the following votes were unanimously passed, all of which appear upon the official record of the Board in my custody. Voted that the sale of the $6,640,000 general obligation municipal purpose loan of 2024 bonds of the town dated January 25th, 2024, the bonds, to Raymond James and Associates Incorporated at the price of $7,339,407.62 in accrued interest, if any, is hereby approved and confirmed. The bond shall be payable on January 15th of the years and in the principal amounts and bear interest at the respective rates as follows. Year 2025, $400,000, 5% interest rate. 2026, $390,000, 5% interest rate. 2027, $385,000, 5% interest rate. 2028, $380,000, 5% interest rate. 2029, $380,000, 5% interest rate. 2030, $330,000, 5% interest rate. 2031, $330,000, 5% interest rate. 2032, $330,000, 5% interest rate. 2033, $330,000, 5% interest rate. 2034, $330,000, 5% interest rate. 2035, $310,000, 4% interest rate. 2036, $310,000, 4% interest rate. 2037, $305,000, 4% interest rate. 2038, $305,000, 4% interest rate. 2039, $305,000, 4% interest rate. 2040, $305,000, 4% interest rate. 2041, $305,000, 4% interest rate. 2042, $305,000, 4% interest rate. 2043, $305,000, 4% interest rate. 2044, $300,000, 4% interest rate. Further voted that in connection with the marketing and sale of the bond, the preparation and distribution of a notice of sale and preliminary official statement dated January 9th, 2024, and a final official statement dated January 17th, 2024, the official statement, each in such form as may be approved by the town treasurer, be and hereby are ratified, confirmed, approved, and adopted. Further voted that the bonds shall be subject to redemption at the option of the town upon such terms and conditions as set forth in the official statement. Further voted that the town treasurer and the select board be and hereby are authorized to execute and deliver a continuing disclosure undertaking in compliance with SEC Rule 15C2-12 in such form as may be approved by the bond council to the town, which undertaking shall be incorporated by reference in the bonds for the benefit of the holders of the bonds from time to time. Further voted that we authorize and direct the town treasurer to establish post-issuance federal tax compliance procedures and continuing disclosure procedures in such forms as the town treasurer and bond council deem sufficient, or such procedures are currently in place to review and update said procedure in order to monitor and maintain the tax-exempt status of the bonds to comply with relevant securities laws. Further voted that any certificates or documents relating to the bonds, collectively the documents, may be executed in several counterparts, each of which shall be regarded as an original and all of which shall constitute one and the same document. Delivery of an executed counterpart of a signature page to a document by electronic mail in a PDF file or by other electronic transmission shall be as effective as delivery of a manually executed counterpart signature page to such document. And electronic signatures on any of the documents shall be deemed original signatures for the purposes of the documents and all matters relating thereto, having the same legal effect as original signatures. further voted that each member of the Select Board, the Town Clerk, and the Town Treasurer be and hereby are authorized to take any and all such actions and execute and deliver such certificates, receipts, or other documents as may be determined by them or any of them to be necessary or convenient to carry into effect the provisions of the foregoing votes. I further certify that the votes were taken at a meeting open to the public, that no vote was taken by secret ballot, that a notice stating the place, date, time, and agenda for the meeting, which agenda included the adoption of the above votes, was filed with the town clerk, and a copy thereof posted in a manner conspicuously visible to the public at all hours in or on the municipal building that the town office of the town clerk is located, or, if applicable, in accordance with an alternative method of notice prescribed or approved by the Attorney General as set forth in 940 CMR 29.032B, at least 48 hours, not including Saturdays or Sundays and legal holidays prior to the time of the meeting, and remain so posted at the time of the meeting, that no deliberations or decision in connection with the sale of the bonds were taken into executive session, all in accordance with General Laws, Chapter 38, Sections 18 to 25, as amended.
And all that just off the top of your head.
You can take a drink now.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Tom.
Yep.
All right, let's renew our financial policy. Oh,
We don't take a vote.
we,
Yeah.
we didn't yet, did we?
You were just so mesmerized
I
by it.
was.
Me too.
It was just so taken aback.
Well,
All
put
those,
this over one or two.
all those in favor, say aye.
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 It's unanimous. Thank you very much. All right,
Okay,
we can pay our debts now.
thank you.
What is our annual debt service with this?
Annual debt service with this is, presentation right in front of me.
Ah,
Hold on one second. Hold on, I have it. It is going to be, I'm gonna say 500 and, right here.
Yeah, perfect.
If we're gonna get to it, I can wait. Yeah, it's in here, that's
Yeah,
right.
585,000, oh, that's annual. You asked for annual or total?
Annual.
Annual is 585,000, yes.
All right, it is just about 6:45. We have a quorum of the FinCom present. John, you want to call your meeting to order, and then we'll have Wendy talk about our new financial policy.
Sorry to preempt you, Wendy.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, I'd like to call to order the January 22nd, 2024 FinCom meeting. We do have a quorum present. John McGrath is here, John Prulge is here, and Harry Phillip. I don't think we need a roll call.
No,
since
you're
we're
good,
in-
because you got nobody remotely, so.
Right. And I don't see any members of the public who want to make any comments, so I think we're all set.
All right, Wendy.
Wendy?
Yep. Can I just correct my, Bill, that's just for town hall.
Oh,
That's
okay.
not for- That's not for the schools, and that's not for the water enterprise. That's just town hall's portion.
Do you have the water enterprise? It's not-
Water
not the
enterprise
school.
is about 980,000,
Okay.
and then the schools is right here. The schools are debt service, 1.5 million.
Okay, perfect. You are well prepared, thank you.
Sorry. Thank you. Okay, so we're here to talk about debt management policy. So if you don't know, we just received the new credit rating for the town of Hamilton. AAA rating is still in effect. And with that, debt management policy is important for us to continue to obtain such rating. So the debt management policy that you have in front of you, I'm just going to go over some highlights. The responsible use of the debt. This policy is meant to comply with Mass General Law and the Division of Local Services standards. And then issuing the debt, the Hamilton is only to borrow what cannot be self-funded, only to borrow for projects with a cost of at least $100,000 or more, for projects with a minimum of a 10-year life, and it's not to be used for operating expenses. And we are also to try to set up user fees in the enterprise fund to cover debt payments for that. The debt limits, which is a big question, is 10% of the general fund revenues with a target balance of 5 to 7%. Currently, with the new debt service that I just talked about, we're at 6.25%. That includes the $1 million for the fields. The debt limits, you're supposed to limit 5% of the valuation. The current valuation for Hamilton is $2.2 billion with with $112 million in debt, total debt that Hamilton has. That is less than 1%, 0.075 of the valuation. And that includes, with the new bond of $670 million is the total debt. And then the debt limit, the new IGR sent out in 2022 says that any school construction that's been approved by MSBA is excluded from these limits, because that would put us over the edge, as John McGrath had made mention.
Yeah.
So those are the highlights of the policy. I don't know if you have any further questions.
Yeah, regarding the debt limit, the fields and the school are gonna push us annually, just those two items, potentially close to $5 million. So the school, if we build a $120 million school, you know, you're talking 3.8, 3.9 million a year that the town has to absorb, and then the fields are about 800,000 or 900,000. So one of the reasons the debt limits are even in the conversation are, does the community have the ability, you know, to pay at that level? So while it's fair to have the MSBA amounts excluded, it does sort of raise the question that we have to sort of reflect on, taking on that level of spending versus the budget. But certainly we all know that's where we're headed with a new school and with the fields, but just to bring to everyone's attention the level of debt service that we're foreseeing over the next 2 or 3 years, you know, it's pretty significant and well in excess of sort of that, you know, that the rate that Wendy quoted. So just something to be cognizant of as we sort of think about this. But
So is there something, that's a very good point, as we look at debt management, and we think about affordability, not just what's included and excluded. Is there a % of something else that covers that in here? And then maybe I missed it or wasn't listening good enough, but in this management policy that looks at, you don't want to get over X% of.
well, Wendy, I think Wendy mentioned it, it's the percent of the total valuation of the
Yeah.
town. That's the sort of the
Total
absolute-
valuation, but
absolute
evaluation is
cap.
paper, right? I mean,
But,
Right.
but,
I don't
you know,
know.
if you look at my view of the policy, and I certainly let other members of the FinCom speak, I mean, it certainly sort of covers sort of all the key aspects, you know, when you're trying to think about endorsing a policy. I think that the fact that we have a policy is real good, and that's what the bonding agencies
Right.
obviously are interested in. I remain focused on, you know, the upcoming debt service that the town's looking at, so. But I think the policy is well-grounded. I mean, you could debate some of the wording in it, but point is, it sort of follows the DLS framework,
Yes.
which we've been following from a policy standpoint for the
Yeah.
last 3 or 4 years, I
Yeah.
think, or
Yeah.
more, so. Those are just some of the comments that I had, but I appreciate Joe digging out the information regarding the MSBA and how that's sort of held aside, because obviously that's a big,
It's a big ticket
a
item.
big ticket item for any community, so. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know if any other comments or thoughts.
One question, Wendy, the numbers that are in the policy,
Yes.
did that all come from the model? Or are they different from the recommended?
No, everything's from the model except under the limits, number 3. We just added that
We just
because
added
it's
that,
new
okay.
information that we found.
Right.
Right.
Wendy? Just to clarify, the original policy was drafted by the state for us in 2017, prior to our meeting.
Yeah.
Right.
We hadn't got around to adopting it anymore. When we started circulating the FinCom, of course, it came up, well, we'd never be able to be under 10% if
Yep.
so Wendy and I did some research, mostly Wendy, and she found a new instruction from DLS, effective February of last year,
Wendy, do you have a sense of any risk that the school project creates to our AAA rating? And if there's anything we should do
So-
to be ahead of that?
When we just went through the credit rating, there are, I believe, 7 components, they said, and so each one has a different weight to it, so this would just be one component of the 7. There's no guarantee how they're gonna take that information, but currently, we don't know.
And, yeah, the Standard & Poor's specifically asked that if we had a debt management policy. They had reviewed the draft one the last time we did a bond rating.
Yeah.
And they formalized it, so they asked us to do our best to bring it forward. And I told them that we would make sure we got it before the select board before the end of the month. And that's what we've done.
Any other comments or questions from select board?
So we just proved general obligation bonds, right? But this reference is to try to do other types of bonding. Somewhere in here, I was looking for it before I spoke up. I want to kind of understand, like, should we have considered that? I think it was number 7.
Yeah, well, I mean, in the first policy, it's debt obligation, which include general obligation bonds, revenue bonds, bond anticipation notes, lease purchase agreements, and any other debt obligations permitted to be issued under MGL.
So the borrowing we just did, really, our only option was for general obligation bonds.
That was the only option, right?
A bond anticipation note is a short-term borrowing, so you need to repay all of whatever you borrowed within 5 years. So obviously, it's much more expensive for us short-term. And
Yeah.
I don't think we would qualify for special revenue bond. We don't have a designated source of revenue for it.
And did I just see something from DLS or something in the last couple of days? They've extended the term limit from 20 to 30 years, or 30 to 40 years, or something like that?
They're going to try.
It's proposed, right?
Yeah, so, yes, that's for everybody's application. The governor announced this weekend at the Mass Municipal Association conference that the administration's filed legislation with the House and Senate to extend the term of borrowing for MSBA's approved school projects from 30 years to 40 years.
Right.
That's, you know, that can be used or not used by municipalities depending on how long they want to stretch out the payments. The longer you pay,
The more you pay.
gotta pay.
Interest, yeah.
But the annual amount would come down a little bit, so it's part, if we get to, if or when we get to the conversation around a school project, we have a project that we will consider, we can have that conversation as to how long we want to borrow it, assuming the legislature adopts the proposed legislation.
Anything else? I think it's overall good. I mean, I've been pushing these policies to get done since 2017. I only see 2 issues, and they're just housekeeping kind of thing. In the purpose statement at the top, there's a space between the end of the last sentence there, the town's bond rating. So it says the T owns bond rating. So just a
Oh, yeah.
typo there.
Okay.
And then in the next applicability, it says Board of Selectmen, should say Select Board. I think that was the only instance that the Select Board was mentioned, or Selectmen was mentioned. So if there's any other instances that it is, which I didn't think there was, it should just be changed to Select Board instead of Board of Selectmen. But other than that, I didn't see anything
didn't
else
see
that
that.
stuck out to me.
Be happy to make those changes.
Yep.
Board of Selectmen is referenced again in the reporting section, number 1.
Yep. So we can review it and make, you know, this came straight from the DLS, but we can scrub it definitely.
Yeah.
Right, it was drafted 2017,
Yeah.
and used to notice the Board of Selectmen,
So
so.
typically, as we've done in the past, we have a kind of a first read. So it's up to the board. We can call it a first read, or if everyone's comfortable with it, we can move ahead and vote on it with the changes as spoken about, just for the grammar and housekeeping kind of stuff. Up to the board's will.
I'm fine moving it forward.
Yeah.
This is not a policy that needs a second reading, but
In FinCom, you don't necessarily need to vote on it, but if you feel you want to vote to,
Just note from FinCom to Christina Shepard joined your meeting at EZ48.
Yep. Christina?
You have 4 members now, we
Yep.
need to take roll call votes.
Joe, do you want us?
do you want to vote on it? I'm fine with it if you want to.
I would say yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So-
It's good process.
Yeah.
I'm happy to make a motion that FinCom favorably recommend the debt policy as slightly amended tonight. Second?
Okay, why don't we do do a roll call, unless there's any more discussion.
John Prulidge, aye.
Christina, do you want to?
Sure, Christina Shank Hargrove, aye.
Okay.
Harry Philip, aye.
And John McGrath, aye.
All right,
So-
and a motion from this half of the room?
I move that we favorably approve the debt management policy as amended.
Second.
Second by Bill, all right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, ayes have it. Thank you, everybody. Thank you,
Thank you very
Wendy.
much.
And one final comment, these policies can be reviewed periodically, and I think it's healthy probably
for
to
sure,
do it, maybe like on a 5-year cycle, you know, so maybe you pick up 2 of the policies every year and you review them, that's
Do we have a policy on that, on review and?
a policy.
thought we
on the-
did.
A
Yeah.
policy on the
I thought it-
policy?
I thought it was reviewed, you know, on a periodic
It's,
cadence
it
and then
says
second
in
readings.
the,
too.
in this policy in particular, I think it says there's at least an annual report of the debt services and stuff like that. I think somewhere in this language, if I remember right, when I read it earlier. I don't quite know where it is, but I think it says at least annually.
Okay.
And so that might be a time that we would have that discussion, whether we think it
Yeah.
needs to.
Under reports,
Yeah, and
Under reports, thank you, Virginia.
number 1.
and I guess my point is, all these policies are subject to review.
yes.
so-
Yeah, and I would say, Wendy, when we move forward with the kind of rest of the batch
Sure.
of these, make sure that each one has that language in it on the reports for at
So
least
we'll set up a
annually.
schedule. We'll set up a spreadsheet with a schedule and
Perfect.
we'll do that.
And maybe if there's a list of policies when they were
Yeah.
last either approved.
Yeah, we have
or-
that somewhere, I
Yeah.
think.
And then we can kind of work through it.
You might know where it is, Lori.
Yeah, we'll take it.
All right, up next, we have a presentation of our FY 2025 operational and capital budget with our town manager and any department heads.
Thank you, everybody. Have my department heads trickling in, they're not all here yet, but hopefully we'll get most of them for you. Good evening. This is our annual presentation of the 2025 capital and operating budgets for the town of Winthrop as recommended by the town manager. I want to take a few minutes to thank Wendy Markowitz, our finance director, and all of our department heads for their efforts this year in preparing this budget document, for the hard work of the FinCom and meeting with department heads and reviewing department needs. And obviously, Capcom's not here, but the Capital Committee also reviewed all of the requests by department heads and helped us to prioritize them, the needs for this year. Okay, Lori? So the first page here is just a look at budget conditions as we head into FY25, and a little bit about our budget goals and objectives. You know, the purpose of our budget season is to follow some overriding principles. Among those are to adhere to the FY25 budget goals and objectives as developed by the Select Board and FinCom, avoid a Proposition 2.5 override, plan for some known retirements. We were asked to look for ways to improve grants management and communications, make targeted operational changes to improve efficiency, stability, and sustainability, negotiate new contracts with all 5 unions. So this is the first time in a very long time that all unions are up at the same time. We did this on purpose a couple years ago. We had been in a 3, 2, and then none cycle, and that got us in a position where unions were negotiating with the town in different economic climates, and we thought it was more fair to negotiate with all the unions at the same time. And then we can treat the non-union employees similarly to the way that we negotiate with the unions. So this year will be the first time that we will have all 5 unions negotiating at the same time. We already have reached a tentative agreement with the police. So the 4 unions left to go, and we are starting meetings with those this week and next week. And my goal is to have tentative agreements with all 5 unions prior to town meeting. Wish me luck. This might be a little bit ambitious of a goal. And because we're negotiating with all 5 unions at the same time, we did not include any salary adjustments for any staff in the budgets that you're about to see. We are carrying a salary reserve in the unclassified section of the budget. To be able to deal with that, we had to make a little bit of a forecast about what we thought where we'd land and have a bit of a cushion there. So as we settle contracts and get closer, we may be able to trim up the overall budget a little bit here, but that remains to be seen. So I'm not going to, next slide, yeah, I'm not going to read all the goals and objectives. I just wanted to have them here in the presentation. This will be available online. Our community can see it, our residents can see it. These are the goals and objectives that were set by the Select Board and the FinCom earlier this fall when we met. And I believe the balanced budget in front of you addresses all of these goals and objectives for the coming year. For the budget summary, I'm going to turn it over to Finance Director Wendy Markowitz.
Okay, thank you. So high-level summary, the total expenditures for FY '25 are $42,463,196. This represents an increase from FY '24 of about $2.7 million, or 6.83%. The town expenses are $17.2 million, which represents an increase of $872,000, or 5.33%. In the education expenses of $25.2 million, represent an increase of $1.8 million, or 7.88%. All the operating expenses, with the exception of OPEB and retirement payouts, are covered by the raised tax levy. The capital expenses for FY '25 are $1,610,788, and this represents a decrease from the prior year of $595,000, or 26.98%. All capital spending and reserve transfers are covered by free cash, ARPA funds, and the release of the overlay of $250,000. The financial policies were taken into consideration for free cash, general stabilization, capital spending requirements, and the water enterprise retained earnings, and all are in compliance with this budget. A significant increase in the operating budget is related to, as Joe spoke about, the 5-unit negotiation increases. So then we'll go right to the FY '25 revenue summary. So in looking at the summary, the total tax levy raised is going to be $35,756,108. State aid is projected to be $1.1 million. Local receipts are projected and forecasted at $2.8 million, and transfers to cover particular expenditures are $1.1 million. Of that, $715,000 is free cash, and about $460,000 comes from the water enterprise. And as you can see, the capital of $1.6 million will be funded as well. So the total revenue and financing sources is $42,463,196. And I think Joe mentioned it's a balanced budget, of course. So then you can look at the funding sources in the pie chart here. The tax levy of $35,756,000 is 87% of the total funding sources. And with the bond rating, the credit rating, that was one of our highlights, that the Hamilton can fund pretty much everything through the tax levy. So local receipts, you can see, is 7%, state aid is 3%, and the other transfers and available funds of $1.1 million, of that $715,000 equals 1.75% of free cash, and 1.25 comes from the water enterprise. Any questions so far? We're good? Okay, thank you. FY '25 expenditure summary. So if you look at it, we grouped them by the groups: general government, public safety, Department of Public Works, health and human services, culture and recreation, unclassified, and education. And as you can see by the next slide with the percentage in uses, 62% is education at $25.2 million. And the outside of unclassified, which is made up of multiple, the other biggest percentage belongs to public safety at 10%, or $4.1 million. General government is $2.6 million. Department of Public Works is $2.4 million. Health and Human Services is just around $400,000. Culture and Recreation is $1.2 million, and unclassified is $4.9 million, and I will go over that later to give you the categories of what's involved in that. And then the capital. So the capital improvements with the release of overlay is going to be $250,000. Capital improvements from ARPA funds will be $250,000, and then other capital improvements are going to be $1,110,788 from free cash.
Does that exhaust ARPA funds, or what is the balance?
No, it does not.
What's the balance, and is there a time?
Currently, it's about $590,000
Do we have to use it by, or?
They extended it to the end of 2026, calendar year 26.
I think we'll have about 250 or so
A little more than that left, yes.
left afterwards.
Yep.
After what?
After we use this
You
250.
have local receipts going up quite a bit. What's the, why is that going up? 630,000?
Okay, so we did a lot of work on that. So we forecasted it out. We took the actual 3-year average, and we did an actual 5-year average, and kind of see where we're at instead of continuing to stay with the budgeted numbers, because it was very conservative. We budgeted 2.1 million and came in at 2.9 in '23. So it was worth taking a look to see, you know.
So is that where from some of our free cash has come from, is from that?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
that makes sense, thank you.
How much unused levy are we left with?
0
Yeah.
this year.
Last year was 80,000 or so.
Yes, it was.
Previous version, there was a little left. Squeezed it down. Yep.
Okay, so, okay, we're gonna move into a snapshot of the capital. Okay, so this is just for your edification, again, the complete 5-year capital improvement plan, it will be available on the town's website. This is a snapshot of what the document looks like. It has, you can see to the right side, you have FY '25, FY '26, '27, '28, and '29, so we're projecting out where different things, where different items will fall in given departments. And we try to hit a target of around 1 to 1.3 million a year as part of our financial policies, spending on capital. So,
Joe, we haven't seen this plan yet from the schools, if I'm correct, but they're working.
they're working on it, right. So what only thing we had to go to with the school, with the schools this year is
Right.
what their current year's requests are, and that's been well documented in their budget presentation so far.
Right.
So we're carrying our share of that in this budget, but
Right.
not more than that.
So, last year at the town meeting, the FinCom did a sort of a combined look of all the capital that we see over the next 8 years. I know this has sort of been a topic I've been harping on, but what we want to do is refresh that look, particularly with the schools coming in and the fields now online, and re-project what the cost of all that capital would be. So we will be getting something from the school. Another, I think if they said at the end
I
of
think
the
at our
month.
next joint meeting. I
Yeah.
think.
Which is next Wednesday, I believe,
Yeah.
the 31st.
Right, so it's a particularly, expensive time in
Yeah.
the town's history here. So we'll refresh that and have it be available for town meeting.
Yes, and the good news, I mean, really, we should be spending about $1 million, $1.3 million a year on capital, because we should be staying up with refreshing our facilities, our vehicles and things. And as far as big projects, for the town side, there is nothing really beyond now that we have the town hall project in the works. There's nothing really we're projecting. A lot of the spending coming will be either potentially water-related,
Water,
if
right.
if we're not able to find a regional solution to the water problems,
Yeah.
and school district stuff. So that's a small silver lining, and
And I
we've
think-
taken care of our side of the house.
Tim, if I'm not mistaken, I think we recently adjusted the water rates to help fund some of that infrastructure that's coming down the pike. So,
Our goal, I think, going forward with water is going to be similar to what we've been doing here with the town, is like trying to do capital that we can do with cash on hand, as opposed to looking to raise the rates or raise the
Right.
tax rate again. So
Right.
the goal there would be to, build up retained earnings so that we can attack
Right.
groups of projects a bit at a time without having to hurt the taxpayer, or the ratepayer. School is a different animal. It's going to have to be treated differently, but we've been trying to manage the town side of stuff
Right.
in a responsible way as possible.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the school and the water too is gonna be a big one to talk about, right? And lastly, on the combined services with Wenham, I see the rec and the library, is that total cost or Hamilton share?
Hamilton share.
Hamilton share, yeah.
What percent is that? Do we?
It's about 66%. We carry 65 and change percent of the Right. So the 5-year capital plan in front of you, and unfortunately, the color coding isn't looking as good as it will if you're looking at your sheets at home. But this lays out just the FY '25 capital plan. in total, about $1.6 million worth of projects, including about $250,000 from the assessor's overlay that was released earlier this year for this year, and $250,000 of ARPA. This money is actually a holdover from last year. If you recall, last year we had called out that we were going to have the select board approve $250,000 to be used in sidewalks. We never actually finished that step because we were busy working on other projects. We didn't need the funds right away, so we left it in ARPA, but we're going to renew that. That'll give, with the funding for the sidewalks from the assessor's overlay, that'll give the town a really good pot of money to go out and really get some work done. So that will help. But all these projects were projects put forward by the capital committee as, priorities. Some more priority than others, but we were able to work with them within the free cash that we had to spend. So the next slide is just a quick graph to show where the funding for our capital this year is coming from. As I said, most of it is coming from free cash, about $1.1 million, and about $500,000 from ARPA and assessor's overlay. So select board can expect that we'll be bringing that request to you in the coming weeks to have a vote. That will, at the end, leave you about $300,000. I know that we have a little bit longer runway on it, but I also know that there had previously been discussions about having the select board engage in more public-facing uses of that final bit of ARPA funds. So one of the thoughts was to see if the select board wanted to put together a small group to work on some recommendations for using that money either at Patton Park or in some other public way. Public-facing way, things that the taxpayers will see that money going to work. You've done a lot of work on the water department and a couple of other things, COVID response, but we haven't really done anything that the public sees on a day-to-day basis. And with about $300,000 left, if the select board wanted to dive deep into the weeds on that, we could put together a small subcommittee that could work with Tim and Sean, outline the priorities that came out of the Patton Park Master Plan to be able to attack some of that stuff with ARPA.
On the DPW side of things,
Yep.
We're always kind of replacing equipment, and that's what seems like the bulk of this is equipment. Is any of this stuff we're surplusing, or are we surplusing the stuff? We're keeping other stuff in service, or we?
Tim? You may as well let him address it.
Yeah.
Tim Olson, DPW Director. We are trading a few in, keeping a few on.
Okay.
So we're just repurposing some of the ones that we're keeping. Others are too far. We might part them out.
Yeah.
And then surplus them or trade in.
Okay, cool.
Moving along to the next, we'll get to the first set of budgets. It's administration finance budgets. Wendy and I will be splitting this one. When you look at administration finance on the personnel side, the only real increase, the only real change is going to be in what's known as the town manager line, but it's really an administrative line. It's not for me. It's to address that priority of improving grant and communications work. So we're seeking a part-time position, about 24 hours a week, with benefits to address that grants management and outreach, active engagement with the public through our website and social media and other. We have a very, very part-time social media assistant, but I think we need to be more proactive, and there should be enough hours in a 24-hour week for somebody to get in, manage our grants, and manage our communications, our outward communications a little better. And then the big changes will be in the expenses that aren't related to personnel. So, Wendy?
Okay, and I'll just touch on the town clerk. The additional personnel expenses there are related to certification stipends and an increase in seasonal temporary wages this year, especially with the elections and town meetings that are coming up. So as far as operational expenses, you'll see in the finance section an increase of 14%. So consultative services for Markham Consulting for accountants, IT Collaborative, which is the cybersecurity, and Andrew Wood is part of that increase. Also increases in technological software contracts and software subscriptions is causing that number to go up. Then you'll see an additional $20,000 in town council, and that's for increased engaged services in that area. $5,000 you'll see for human resources. That's for the Human Resources REACH program that Joe and Michelle have decided to take on. And then in the elections and registration side, more employee training and MIS and software services, additional postage, and public safety details for the voting. Yep.
On that REACH program is, it's a program done in partnership with the Metropolitan Area Planning Council. They've been reaching out to communities to help our staff find better ways to be more inclusive, to be better ways of making sure that we're taking care of our employees better, training our employees so that they treat our public better. So it's a $5,000 annual cost to have Michelle in this training that she can bring back to the town and help all of our department heads and staff adapt to the changing working environment for folks.
Question for Wendy, the consulting and finance, is that more of a one-time project kind of thing, or is that something we expect to see?
So for FY '24, it was expected to be larger and ongoing. It will be less of a contract, if you will. It's help that's going to be available to us, especially with the transition in the finance team. So it's going to be ongoing, from what I understand Joe would like to have done, but the cost should be less and less.
Gotcha, okay.
And then for town council, how much of it is change in retainer versus cost of litigation that's ongoing?
It's mostly change in retainer. Their rates did go up this year. They did for all law firms, so I wasn't surprised to get that letter. It's mostly just a change in retainer.
For IT with Andrew Wood, is that more time? Is it more just a rate increase?
Rate, COLA increase, basically, for, the contract. And then the cybersecurity, the Danvers, I don't know, the collaborative, North Shore Collaborative, I'm sorry.
The North Shore IT Collaborative out of Danvers, their costs went up a little bit, but they're providing us a lot more, particularly in terms of cybersecurity. We've been,
Are we happier with that now?
I think we're happy with it right now, and, two things I'll point to. One, the North Shore IT Collaborative has started to become a model around the state, so lots of other communities are starting to look what we're doing at, what Danvers is doing, and they're leading it. And we've been able to track, through them, we've been able to track a lot of grants that have benefited all 9 or 10 communities that are in the collaborative. And, I'll give you an example of why it's important. Last summer, just as the new town administrator was taking over there, they had a cyber threat incursion that basically took down their whole infrastructure. And Danvers folks was able to come in and get them up and running again within about a week and a half, 2 weeks. It took them a while to kind of recover everything, but they were able to operate. And without them, nobody would be able to do it that quickly. So it really makes us feel better that we're already tied into them. And we'll have that support and backup if necessary. Hopefully, a lot of the work that we've already done around cybersecurity will keep us from needing that kind of service, but it's a good insurance policy to have.
So from an FTE year over year, it's just a part-time person and then the full year of anyone you might have hired last year?
Yes. What
You know what I'm saying? Like from a FTE, full-time headcount equivalent, right? You're only asking for a part-timer in this budget?
In this budget.
And then you got the full year of maybe some people you might have hired last year. I think the fire department did, right? And
Well, that'll be in the public safety budget.
Yep.
Right, but not in the, but.
Yeah, so somewhere is there an org chart or something that just shows, I'm kind of trying to get to the people cost of incremental people or?
So this budget proposes an increase of a half-time
Yep.
grants and communications person. The only other increase, really, this year over year, from FY '25 over current year, is that we're going to ask, and I was going to talk about it in the next budget, in the planning and inspections, in planning for the retirement of Patrick Greffett, I'm proposing that we add about a half year's additional salary so that we can bring somebody on in July and have them overlap. And
That would make
Patrick's been here
sense.
about 10 years, and he's kind of got a lot of historical knowledge. It would be a shame to lose it all.
Gotcha.
So my request here is to, and I may as well get into planning inspections. The only changes in the planning inspections budgets from a personnel standpoint are $60,000 to be able to bring a new planning director in before Patrick leaves in November and get him trained. And then we're carrying the full cost of the full-time conservation agent who we share with Manchester. So it shows up in the budget as an increase, but we're now counting revenue on the other side of about $46,000 from Manchester to pay for that time. So even though it shows like a hit here, we get $46,000 more revenue on the other side. So it balances.
Okay.
And there is some some cost increases that Wendy could talk about in inspectional services.
And that goes back to the question about local receipts as well. So all of these IMAs also, so there's been one that was added last year, and then another one this year. That adds to the local receipts as well, just so you know. Okay, so this one's a little bit tricky, just so you understand the inspectional services. It looks like it's a 200% increase. I know it's less than $14,000. So for accounting purposes, it's a revolving fund, but it's not, because it's not set up that way. But we are taking permits now online, so it's costing us about $10,000 for that software. The customer who pulls the permit is paying that $10 for the permit, but that's in the revenue side. So we may decide, because it's, minimal dollars, that we can combine it, but at this moment, it's split. So this is the expense, and on the revenue, the local receipts is the other side of it, just so you understand. I didn't want Rich to be upset. I know, he didn't like it. It didn't look good. So, and then, other than the software services for inspections, a little additional travel expenses, and pretty much that's it for that.
Now we get into the real meat of the business, of the budget here in Hamilton. We got public safety team up. Again, there's not a lot to talk about in terms of increases in personnel expenses in public safety, except that in the budget, you'll see it says $147,671 change in police. That is actually just planned retirements. There are going to be 2 retirements this year that we have to pay out, and the payouts for those retirements total $147,671. The calculation's already been done. We are proposing to pay that out, but we are proposing to pay that with free cash, not with, we're not raising appropriate. We're that close. We don't want to, if we change that, we're going to have to take it out of somewhere else. But we have free cash. We have enough free cash that we can pay that. It's a one-time expense. These folks retire, and then we don't have to worry about it. And they're also at the upper end. So one of those retirements is working on the old rules. So Sean, I think you've been here long enough that you'd remember that the town changed its personnel policies on sick time buyout for retirees, and one of these 2 is still on the old rules. So I think he might be the last employee left in town. There might be one more in the.
I think he's it.
There's no one in Public Works that's on the old rules? No.
I don't
So he's
think so.
he's the last one in town. So it looks like a big number, but it's not going to happen again anytime soon. So, again, all the personnel, the real cost of changes is being carried in the salary reserve right now while we negotiate contracts. But Wendy can talk about a very small increase in the operating side, the operating expenses side.
Yes, so for the police, fire, and the ECO center, basically all the increases are related to contractual increases for software contracts and vehicle leases. Also, body-worn camera licensing fees for the police officers. Ammunition prices have increased, and more EMT training for the fire department.
We have both the police chief and the fire chief here, if you have any specific questions for them.
What's the difference in the vehicles in the capital plan and the leases you just mentioned? Operating expense versus capital, you can't capitalize a lease, or?
The only vehicles we're buying for public safety are police cruisers. Russ,
I think
why
we
don't
got one
explain
cruiser.
You got an SUV cruiser, it said.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering why they're treated differently than a,
that? Russ usually carries one, well, go ahead, you explain.
So one cruiser, good evening, everyone.
Hey, Russ.
One cruiser, we buy a new replacement cruiser every year. We trade one in every year.
Yeah.
We keep our cruisers approximately 6 years. They're about 130,000 miles before we trade them in. We do not get a ton of money on our trade-ins because the hours and the mileage and the abuse they take. And then we lease one for 3 years. So every third year, we buy 2. We buy one and lease one.
Okay.
And then we carry that for a 3-year lease. Then we own it. So we put one on lease and we put one, we've done it 16 years I've been before the board. We've done it so many different ways.
Yeah.
This is the way we've been doing it for the last probably 10 years.
okay, that explains it. Thanks.
We weren't nice to the fire chief. We didn't give him any new toys this year. He's waiting on a new fire engine.
It's coming though, right?
It takes 5 years by the time you order it, so.
So we spent the money last year to order it, and we got the money from town meeting and we ordered it, and it's still at least a year out. So he's He's waiting, but it was an expensive one, so I don't feel like we're being too unfair to him.
I feel like we owe him a Dalmatian after this Luca thing, though.
I don't know if the Dalmatian would get along with his personal dog. His personal dog's.
I actually lost my personal dog.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know.
Nice, Joe, nice.
I did not know that. I am sorry.
True bug.
So we really owe him a Dalmatian.
Hey, nobody, I did not know. Nobody told me.
Well, sorry to hear that.
Now I feel
Now
like-
we do owe you a
We do
dog
owe you
after
a
this
Dalmatian.
debacle.
You should make sure that gets in here.
So we have some pictures here from Public Safety that we can show folks that Lori will scroll by. We tried to make the presentation a little bit more attractive this year. We've offered some pictures from the different departments. Can you, it's frozen.
Look, being sworn in.
This one we wanted to highlight, Officer Luker.
Better put more ink in the budget.
These are nice photographs.
It's a lot of good color. Yeah, very nice.
There we go.
Officer Luca. We do have one dog in the house.
He was a matching one.
She has been a hit. She's now the most popular officer in the entire police department.
Being sworn in. I love it.
Russ and Ray, why don't you talk a little bit about what the pictures are?
That's one of Ray's expensive fire trucks. Police department serving the seniors, or the senior center, and I don't see Ray in there. I wasn't invited, you didn't tell me about that. Yes, Ray's in that, that's when we're doing the Autism Awareness Month, and we're providing transportation. And I had to drive Ray around.
This is what I did.
Driving the stage.
Providing transportation, translates to delivering pizzas.
And I can do Tim's if you like.
He's good at it, so, you know.
You spend some time with that fuel pump.
Chief Burnett, how are we on SCBA stuff? I know we updated a bunch of things and turnout gear and stuff like that. Are we still trying to rotate through that and get grants and stuff like that? I know it was an issue a handful of years ago. I don't know if we've addressed all of the need.
We rotate turnout gear. We buy 5 sets a year. Equipment grant, I applied for and got last year was $15,500. We applied for a couple of grants this year. We got another small grant. It's called the EMPG grant for $2,700. We just were awarded that. I am waiting to hear back again for another $15,500 equipment grant, and I spoke to the grant manager, and it all looks good. I was kind of worried with the budget shortfalling of the state,
Yeah.
but he assured me that that wasn't going to be a problem.
Okay, good.
So, I mean, we're working on it. We're always continually buying equipment to upgrade it. I'm just worried right now. There's a big thing about PFAS in the gear, like everything else. Cancer. Cancer's been in the fire service for a long time. It's they say it's not if, it's when you get it. But so the gear is been over the years. It's loaded with this PFAS, and they're trying to come up with a substitute. So when that happens, I'm worried that they're going to say that we're all going to have to replace,
Everything, right?
35 sets of gear all at once. For the full-timers, we actually have another set. They have 2 turnout sets of gear. In case we have a fire, then they have another set they can go and use immediately. And then we do have we got a grant, we got a washer and dryer several years ago, so we're able to turn and wash our gear and turn it back around and get it clean and back in service as quick as possible. So,
Great.
any other questions?
No, that was it for me.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, so moving on to Department of Public Works, you see here the new fuel tanks. That's the picture on the left. That's our new above-ground fuel storage tank and pumps. And Tim, what's the vehicle on the right?
That's one of our trackless roadside machines and snow blower attachment, sidewalk plow, all in one.
Is this similar to the one that we're replacing in the current capital year budget?
We're gonna get another one of those.
Right. So the $210,000 DPW vehicle that says snow blower, that's what you'd be buying, another one of those. So give us 2, one much older and one hopefully brand new, although I'm not sure when we'll get it. The vehicles have been very hard to get on time. Lori, if you want to scroll ahead. So the Department of Public Works budget, again, not really showing any changes on the personnel expense side. We're negotiating contracts. But In the operational expenses, some noteworthy things to note, to take notice of. We have repairs and maintenance of aging buildings and repairs and maintenance of aging HVAC systems. So you'll see the public building and maintenance line has gone up about $26,000. We also had some increase in need of GIC work, so that's consultancy that you see $15,600 for. In highways, there's some market price increases in tree maintenance. So our tree contract to have, who do we have now? Sequoia Tree does the town's tree work, and that price went up.
We bid that every year?
Every 3.
Every 3?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I like to try to do every 3.
There's a little bit of extra funding in there for increased costs in vehicle and equipment supplies. And then this $31,420 increase for our waste recycling and landfill. All of our contracts, they're contractual prices. None of them has nothing to do with we're not throwing things in the right place. It's just we have contractual increases with Casella and Wheelabrator. I could not think of the name.
Is there any more update on Wheelabrator's status? I know they're pushing that they're gonna be at capacity and et cetera in the next couple of years. That's why we went up so much in the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, our contract with them is up in...
One more year.
One more year, so so in FY '26, we're gonna have to renegotiate again. I'm sure they'll come and tell us. The deal with capacity is that the state's not letting them burn more. So as long as we stay in line with them, we won't have that much, we'll see more cost, but we won't need to scramble.
Right.
I do know of towns in western Massachusetts that have now gotten to the point where they're putting their trash on trains and sending them to Ohio. So we don't want to incur that kind of cost. So I'm sure we'll be talking to Wheelabrator and Casella in the next year as both contracts reach their end dates. And
when we negotiate with Casella and stuff, I know Wenham uses Casella too. I can't remember. We're separate contracts, but we negotiate some stuff that overlaps a little bit with their routes and days and stuff like that.
yeah,
I'd assume they're on the same contract cycle.
they're on the same contract cycle, and we'll be talking with their administration over there about when to go out, when to engage with Casella. The other thing, I think I've said this to the board, we currently, our composting is handled by Brick and Farms here in town, local business, love to have them. We don't have a contract with them. They've not really been interested in signing a contract and locking us into a price that was predictable. At this point, we're at their goodwill, so we're gonna make another effort this coming year, here in the calendar year '24, to try to get them to engage with us in a contract that is mutually beneficial. If they don't, they're not the only game in town. Casella is actually doing composting now.
Yeah.
So there's options, and, there's also Black Earth, which isn't too far away.
Right.
So that might mean an increase in price, but if it means a predictable price that we know,
Right.
that better for forecasting. So there'll be some changes coming to that in '25 and '26, but not in FY '25. And then moving on to Health and Human Services. Health and Human Services are our new way of referring to the Council on Aging and our Public Health Department. So we have both Dennis Palazzo, our Health Director, and Teresa Woodbury, our Health and Human Services Director, here tonight. Again, same thing with the salaries. We're not showing any changes there because we're carrying the money in salary reserve. There's only a very small increase in the operating side of things. Mostly it's on the Council on Aging side. So Teresa, why don't you come up and talk about that? Actually, Dennis's department saved us $40 this year over last year, so that's a good thing. Woo! Teresa, why don't you come up and talk about what's going on with Council on Aging?
So our biggest increase is the cost of stamps to mail out our newsletter. We have tried to get it streamlined so that people get it electronically. Unfortunately, because of the population that we're working with, that's not always the easiest thing to do. So we send out 1,400 newsletters a month, and with stamps just going up again, I expect we're going to hit another increase. We also asked for a small increase in our instructors. We have increased our activities there tremendously. We just added Fit Over 50. We have Qigong, we have yoga. So again, just trying to get more things that people are wanting in there. Any questions?
Any questions for Teresa? Doing a great job.
Well
I
done.
must say.
Thank you.
I mean, everybody here tonight is doing a great job, but the Council on Aging, is just been great since you've been here.
Dennis, you want to talk about where you saved that $40, or?
Hey, we appreciate it.
Well
Every penny
done.
counts.
There is another budget in this. It's the Veterans Services, Veterans Benefits budget. So this includes rather both our cost to be part of the Cape Cod Veterans Group that's run by Gloucester. There was a slight contractual increase with them. And then some of that $7,750 increase is also related to, I think, another veteran came on. So there's a little bit more benefits going out. But really, it's for the amount of money that it is and what we get back from the state, it's not killing us to take care of our veterans a little bit. And it's really only the veterans that are in need. It's not every veteran in town, so.
Right.
Is there anything in capital for any of these groups? I know you had the detailed sheet, like council, was there anything in the building or anything you needed to do there, or?
So our outside of the building is gonna need to be repainted, the sidewalk, and then the ongoing topic of putting up a partition so that we can have more activities going on.
So was that talked about in the capital plan and just for maybe another year, or just didn't?
I would say we'll start talking about it within the next year.
Okay,
So.
good.
So, next budget up is Culture and Recreation, and I'll turn that over to Wendy and Sean Timmons.
Just a question before you get up and talk about that. With the CADA van services, how, is that indefinite? What is that? Our van services with the state?
I mean, we're providing that service through CADA now. The board voted to join CADA, and that's really the only service we get from CADA. We've had some discussions with Wenham about merging more services and stuff like that until we have kind of a real plan for it. And, you know, it's difficult, right? Because I understand there's a lot of people that would like to see us offer the same type of van that Wenham operates. But Wenham operates that van at a cost of a little over $100,000 a year. And for the number of people it serves,
Right.
If we're providing the service and we're getting folks to their appointments and getting them to their shopping, taking on the expense of a van and drivers and fuel and liability insurance
Right.
and vehicle insurance, you know, for.
The cost benefit.
Do we track that? I mean,
Tough.
number of trips and all that to say that? I mean, I
Yeah,
know you
CADA
said
gives
that.
us a report
Yeah.
at the end of the year, I think.
Yeah, so CADA they're more than happy to send it whenever we want, but we do get a yearly report on it. We also started the fish program. There is a need in town. CADA only offers during the business hours, so they're really only from 8 until I think their final pickup is 3:30. You have to be back at your destination, or they have to be back at their point at 4 o'clock. So we started the fish program in town with a group of volunteers to help with some of the transportation issues, mainly. The big one that we've had is for voting and for the last town meeting. We had a couple of people take advantage of it.
And there's no opportunity to leverage Wenham's van? I mean, are they fully utilized in this?
Well, no, I mean, again, and there's only operates during business hours as well. It's not like they are running a lot of.
It's not a 24/7
It's not a
service.
24/7 service. There isn't a council on aging that I know of that's running a 24/7 transportation service. Local governments just aren't really well-suited to be public transporters. That's why you have most of the public transportation is done regionally.
I'm just,
We'll
Wenham's
continue- we'll
doing it,
continue to
Wenham's
look at
doing
the
it with a ambulance and an aging vehicle, right? COA vehicle.
Yep. I believe usually they probably got that with a grant when they were still
You know, I'm just
merged
wondering if
with us.
there's,
They've had that.
in the spirit of regionalization things, there's no opportunity. I'm not talking 24/7, I agree, but.
Yeah, so we have been engaged in conversations with Council on Aging. As some of you remember, that 10 years ago or so, 11, 12 years ago, the towns were kind of moving towards a merged Council on Agings. That fell apart for a variety of reasons. Towns went their separate ways. We're starting to put that back together, but it's slow. It's rebuilding kind of trust in the relationships between the two towns. I think Teresa is doing a great job working with Jim and Wenham, and they're starting to get some buy-in. The two councils on aging have collaborated on a couple things, and now that we have the Friends of the Council on Aging here in Hamilton, that's been helpful. We're accepting Wenham folks into all the programs that we offer. They're starting to accept Hamilton folks into the programming that they offer. So we're getting there.
That's
And,
good.
and as we move into FY26 stuff, you may see us come and say, we want to do an IMA, we want to do more partnership. But sometimes it's easy. You put together an assessing IMA in a couple of minutes, and then other times it just takes a while. So we're working it.
Awesome.
All right.
Culture and Rec.
So as you know, the rec department has a $750,000 revolving fund, and that pretty much takes care of all the programming and the summer programs and after-school programs. So this slight increase is basically for running the office, and it's mostly contractual with software and an increase in office supplies, pretty much. And then the library, that was the estimate that we were given for, from Wenham. We hope it does not increase. That's all I can say about that.
And Sean, that increased amount in that revolving fund has been working out for us.
Sean Timmons, Hamilton Wenham Recreation Director. Yeah, and actually that was vital with us making all the kind of the major infrastructure improvements at the pool. So without that increase, we wouldn't, we wouldn't have been able to do that. So by increasing to 750, we were able to take some of the the revenue surplus, I guess, to really, do the work at the pool, which I think in total probably amounted to close to $100,000 when you took into account the decking work, the new furniture, the IT infrastructure with, the online payments and Wi-Fi and things like that. So it was, vital, and really none of those improvements could have happened without it.
And it was worth every penny.
Every penny.
What an improvement.
Every penny.
And on the recreation personnel, some of that is paid by Wenham, is that correct?
So, yes, so myself and the administrative assistant, that's a 65-35, whatever that it might be, split with Wenham correctly. The budget here also includes, in the rec, also includes the Patton Homestead director, so that's why, it's, the numbers look like they do. But the Patton Homestead director is in this budget. That is not a shared cost with Wenham. It's just my salary, or the recreation director's salary, and the administrator. So two full-time employees.
Thanks, Sean.
And just to highlight what Sean alluded to there, essentially we have a recreation department that's functioning for two towns with a combined population of around 12,000, 13,000 people. And they're successfully running so many programs that they spend $750,000 a year that isn't raised in taxes. It's raised through user fees only. I think that's a credit to them. It's a credit to the way the towns have worked together, Sean's leadership, and been able to just provide more and more the type of programming that our residents want. So I really appreciate everything that Sean and the folks in Recreation do there. Wendy already provided you like an update about the library. So hopefully we know that their capital number's right, and our capital committee's already agreed to what they've asked for in the capital plan. We're fairly confident that library number will be right. The education, so real quick, a couple things to know. The biggest, obviously there's been an increase in the school side, but the school side actually did a really good job trying to control their operational costs this year. There's only a 3% increase in the operational costs, which is the best it's been since I've been here. And that's 3% to us. It's a little bit lower for Wenham. The debt service hurts, but that's almost all excluded. That was the town's voted to build the athletic fields, and this is the first year payment on that project. So you see a big jump there of 264%, but that is almost exclusively the athletic fields band payment for this year. You will also see a pretty hefty jump, about $121,000 increase in the assessment from the Essex North Shore Agriculture and Technical School. That is largely due to a 39% increase in the number of students from 18 last year to 25 going forward. And so we just took, Essex North Shore has not yet done their budget, so they haven't really provided us a real number. So we took their number per pupil last year, added a percentage to it, and then multiplied it by the new student count to get to that estimate. So that number might adjust a little bit up or down, depending on how things all shake out finally, but that's a pretty close to accurate increase count there.
Joe?
Yep.
Just a quick comment to follow up on what you said about the the school department and their approach to their budget this year. For a number of years, the FinCom has been pressing the school department to really scrub their operating budgets really tightly. And this is now the second year that Eric Tracy has squeezed the operating budget. And I don't want to use the term zero-based budget, but what he did this year is he had each department look back their 5-year spend, and he squeezed down and squeezed out expenses that hadn't been challenged previously, which is really what we've been after. So, you know, Eric has set a different tone in the school department, at least the 3 years that I've been doing this. So I just wanted to pass that on, you know, without even having to be pushed. He sort of knew what the challenge was that he signed up for a couple of years ago. And I just wanted to, you know, publicly say that, you know, he's very aware of the spending and the burden the schools have on the town, and is certainly aware of what's coming.
Yeah.
We've
had lots of good productive conversations with Eric over the last 2 years. He's more than just being aware of the burden, the school, he's aware of the limits of the town's ability to raise revenue.
Right.
And so he has been, you know, in the 5 years I've been here, he's been the best superintendent we've had to work with. And you're right, he didn't just set a tone in the organization, in the district, among employees, but he's kind of also worked with the school committee and have them looking at things the same way he does, which has been very, very helpful.
And it's one, you know, it's one point to say, well, we have a good relationship, but the point beyond that is the work that he's done on the budget is showing up in the numbers.
Right.
And Vinnie, who's the assistant or the deputy superintendent for finance, has now started to trend and publish some of their statistics to give everyone a bit of an insight in terms of how they're using the funds, teacher ratios and things like that. So they've done some nice work over the last 2 or 3 years.
Absolutely.
And have been more transparent than previous, so I wanted to just call that out.
I also want to add something to that, because that's looking at it from the school side, but certainly the last couple of years in terms of the process, what has really helped is all the department heads and Joe and Wendy getting those budgets way ahead of, you know, schedules we've been doing in prior years, so that we can have productive conversations with the school and we kick things off in sort of, you know, November timeframe. Years past, those first discussions with the school were almost meaningless because we didn't have budget numbers. But now with the budget numbers, I feel like the process is a lot smoother. We're talking about real budget situations, and we don't have to push the school to cut over the span of 3 to 4 months. So hats off to moving that calendar up.
Yeah, thank you. It's been hard work on our side, but like we said, Eric and Vinnie have been very open to having those earlier meetings, but so have the board and committee members, right? So many people may not realize they see the 5 boards meetings now twice a year instead of once a year. But in addition to that, we now have the 5 chairs meetings that are happening 4 or 5 times a year in addition to that. So well outside of the budget cycle, the chair of the select board, the chair of FinCom, the chair of the select board and FinCom and Wenham get together with the superintendent and the assistant superintendent and the chair of the school committee, and we meet a little more often than quarterly, not maybe every other month, a little less than that. So those other early conversations and just forecasting what we've got coming up and what we need to be focused on as a community, not schools versus town, has been helpful to the whole process. And so that speaks to the leadership of the boards and committees that we're working with. So we appreciate that. That helps us in our meetings with our peers. So the big thing that everybody always wants to know is what the heck is unclassified? And here for a primer on unclassified is Wendy.
Okay, so because we're in a negotiating year, the salary reserve is not a one number or in one line item. So salary reserve, Medicare, tax, and health benefits combined total about $1.6 million, which is an increase of $450,000. What's good to note is, not a good thing for Hamilton, but important with the numbers, is health insurance. We were told to hold at least 10% of an increase there for health insurance. The same thing with the regular business insurance. So, you know, that's what we're doing. We hope it comes down, but we're not too hopeful. So, capital spending, you can see that's the one line item we did talk about, 1.6 million. Celebrations, that's events around the town, it's $15,000. Debt service, now, the decrease there is because we just sold the, we just paid off the ban and then got the bonds. So you can see that the difference, the interest went down for that to $585,000. I'll pass over form-based zoning, Joe can talk about that. And then you have state assessments of $250,000. The retirements, which is the actual, the assessment from Essex Regional Retirement System. The FY25 appropriation came in on time, so this is an actual number. So that increase went up to $1,462,000, and that's based on an appropriation of $50.5 million. Hamilton's share is 2.9%. Unemployment, we looked at the average and we took it down to 35,000. Luckily, we are not in that situation. And same thing with the other insurance. So $343,000, that's an increase of approximately 10%. And then you see your transfers, the special revenue, that's capital. So when last year, when we bought the fire truck, I believe it was, the capital went under the reserve percentage that the policy states. Now, the policy does not state that you have to replenish that right away, so that's not mandatory. But if you want to do like a 3-year plan and kind of chip away at it, that's a good, it's a good number, $235,000 to add back to it. Transfer the OPEB, $125,000, which has been ongoing, as you can see, over the years. And transfer to stabilization, now that is mandatory. So 5% of the budget needs to stay in stabilization, and in order for that to happen, we got to add $82,000, and then transfer to the HDC of $58,000. So that makes up the whole unclassified line item.
Thank you.
And Joe, form-based zoning?
So, yeah, real quick, included in that number, unclassified, we are carrying a sum of money for a warrant article. It won't be in the budget, it'll be a moneyed article. I think most of you are sort of familiar with this at this point. We've talked about it briefly in some of our previous meetings. We have a lot of different things going on with the downtown. So the state wants the town to adopt 3A zoning, which is geared towards creating opportunities for new housing, creating zoning that would allow for new housing. There is going to be a discussion in the community over the next year to determine if there's going to be a new school project and where that school might be sited, and will it incorporate the student bodies of the 2 existing elementary schools in town or just one. That all has to be decided. But should it go in a direction that the Winthrop School becomes available to us, the Winthrop School is in the heart of what would be the downtown zoning and would help us in our 49 acres for the MBTA 3A zoning. We've also had the planning board and the HDC wanting us to talk about the future zoning of the Winthrop School site as part of the whole in the downtown, and wanting to look at it in a way that it continues to maintain the character of what the town has built and how it's built and grown over the years. So in consultation with Sean, with the HDC, with the planning director and the planning board chair, I'm proposing that we put a sum of $125,000 into a warrant article that would be used for us to hire a consultant to help us develop a 3A compliant form-based approach to the Winthrop site and the rest of the downtown. The HDC has agreed to put in some of their own money, $25,000 to $50,000, depending on what the need is based on the consultant that we get. And so that is there in the budget for the town to consider at Angel's Town Meeting. I think it's really important that as the boards and town meeting and maybe a future debt exclusion vote consider what happens with the school sites and what we do about zoning in the downtown, we have an organized process to invite everybody into the conversation, hear everybody's ideas, help everybody understand what it is the state's putting on us with 3A zoning and how we can try to meet their request without changing the character of our downtown. but we're not going to be able to do it with staff that we have on. We're going to need people that are well-versed in form-based code, well-versed in conducting workshops and having public discussions and charrettes so that we can get to a place where the majority of our town wants to support it. So that is a big budget request for this year, but I don't think we have the time to lose.
Right. Yeah, if I could just make one comment. If we, as two communities, decide that we are going to build a new school, and that's the direction we're headed in, the Winthrop site or the Cutler site could generate some significant tax revenue. And the FinCom's been spending a little bit of time, try to put a model together. So we'd like to be prepared to have that conversation, at least preliminarily, how much revenue could come out of that site. So it's a question of how much market value you put in there. But it just needs to be part of the conversation as you talk to, taxpayers in town. So it seems a likely option would be that one of those two sites would free up, and development and potential revenue opportunity is there. So it's, nothing's been decided, but it just needs to be a thoughtful conversation. And you want experts who know how to do development, coming up with the right answers, not the FinCom sitting in a dark room somewhere.
And, we've already seen that there have been some folks who are neighbors of one parcel or the other, concerned about what does it mean for the change of the way they function in their neighborhood, traffic, what does it mean? What do these things mean? So, trying to figure it out among our 3 or 4 boards and the professional staff is not gonna satisfy those folks. We have to try to address their concerns in an organized, thoughtful way. And hopefully we get to a place, like I said, where you have 65% of the community that wants to support something, or more, I'll always shoot for 100%, but I'm not a believer we'll get there. So that's my big budget request this year. Just see a need to have a open public discourse about it.
Yeah, and I like that you have a shared cost with the HTC. That's good, but to be clear, to John's point too, this is just for the Winthrop location, correct?
No, I think for, what you can see for form-based code plans and for what you can do for like neighborhood zoning, it's usually in the order of $125,000 to $150,000.
Okay, so that's not just around the proposed district? Oh, good.
We try to have, we got some free work done by the state that the planning board will be reviewing very shortly on the 3A thing, but it's not really gonna meet our town's needs it's still Euclidean design, it's still just, talks about massing and setbacks and density and doesn't really get to what our planning board and a lot of our residents are worried about. So we want to try and take that work that was done for us for free by the state and put it together with some professional help and input from all of our residents.
And Bill, just to go a little bit further in that 3A zoning is that half-mile radius from the
Right,
MBTA
that's what made me
station.
say it.
So it would include that whole half mile, not just the Winthrop site.
But does that get you to Cutler? I don't think so.
No.
It doesn't get you
No.
It does,
too far away.
It's
that's
not,
why I asked.
3A is not part of it.
And mostly that's that downtown overlay district that we already have existing, which is, it's loosely form-based, but it's not, this would help solidify and kind of get everything.
It's interesting, the existing downtown zoning that you have is very close to being compliant with what the town wants, or what the state wants in 3A, and it's kind of a backdoor way of being form-based, but it's not really form-based. So I do think, I am encouraged by that. I think we could take what we have there, kind of have somebody else help us ferret out how to finish it and make it more uniform, across the whole district, inclusive of the Winthrop site. And it's zoning. It's not saying this will happen. You can pass the zoning and then decide to keep the Winthrop school, and it's still nothing changes for 50 years.
And the Cutler site was it R1A?
Yeah, I mean, you're wondering about
Dover,
modeling the
whatever,
Cutler site, right, without a study, but it's gonna be housing, so I think you.
It's gonna be R1A or
R1A, so I don't think
development,
we
or
need
whatever, if Cutler
Yeah, right,
goes,
so I don't know that we need to have a study on that, but
No.
that's something to think about.
Exactly.
So, and the next, getting into, we did, in classified expenses, we'll let Wendy and Tim talk to you a little bit about the Water Enterprise Fund.
Tim, do you want to talk about it?
Come on, Tim.
I would love it.
How's the hockey season going, Tim?
Underway, still going.
Frozen ice.
So, as you can see, there's not much changes to the water enterprise. As we mentioned earlier, we went through a rate study and a rate adjustment to not only satisfy the operational expenses, but also to put some money away into the retained earnings to then start building up the retained earnings to do some capital projects. I think, talking with Wendy, we are looking to sit down and look where we are. Usually that happens after the third quarter, which the bills will be going out pretty soon for your February bill. So we'll take a look at what those, the revenue is coming in from after the February bills collected, and we'll see where we're at and how we're tracking. The biggest change here is the operating capital. It's a decrease. I believe this was for, last year we had a water utility truck put in there. This year we do not. That's part of all our other capital, not inside the water this year. So that was the biggest difference there. We are still waiting on that truck. We've ordered it, and they're saying possibly mid-year, but it's very challenging to get any type of vehicles in any short period of time. So, other than that, there are just some small increases. Some contract services is for some of the GIS work that I've been working towards, building our GIS platform, getting a lot of our tie cards digital, getting our system put on the computer for generations to come. It's just a nice catalog, being able to get those records out in the field instead of having to come back and find them in a file drawer. It saves time, much more efficient. So that's some of those expenses. Supplies are up, cost market prices and things like that. So.
I just have a question, since we're talking kind of fleet and vehicle specialty equipment stuff. And I know we ordered a fire truck, not really early, but we ordered it early because it's gonna take a long time. You're saying you're waiting on a truck as well. Do we foresee any other issues with specialty equipment in police or fire, DPW, that we should be thinking about now sooner than later because there's a long lead time on it?
Well, in DPW world and water, I mean, the capital project, or the capital that we put together, I think had four vehicles.
Yeah.
That was to help get the vehicles ordered and to try to minimize the time it takes to get them. Our sander that we appropriated last year, we still don't have. It was supposed to be here this February. They're saying maybe next February. So there's a long, and we're really trying to, my mechanics trying to keep these things going. The sanders are frontline sanders. They're in the worst conditions possible. They are 2012s, 13s, something like that, way past their useful life. He's done a good job getting them going and keeping them going, but definitely needing some newer equipment and replacements. So,
Russ, have you seen anything with vehicles on your side? You're mostly cruisers and stuff like that, so it's hard, but it's not as hard. It's not special equipment, really.
Basically, our cruisers are just heavy-duty vehicles.
Right.
So like the Explorers we use or the Tahoes are just the regular personal vehicles that have heavy-duty transmissions and coolant systems. So we're not seeing the impact that fire services and the water department and DPWs, those are heavy equipments that they're having a longer delay. For us, it's just a couple months.
Right,
And
okay,
it's no real impact with us.
all right, thank you.
Real quick on that, Sean. There is a little bit of an impact across all vehicle types. So 10 or 12 years ago, there was an organization in the state called MHQ that you could go out to their site in Worcester, and there was like acres of just vehicles ready to be bought, and they just like outfit them with your town's colors and name, and you'd have them in 3 or 4 months. MHQ doesn't exist anymore.
That's all the municipal bid stuff,
Yeah,
and right?
yeah. Plymouth County Sheriff's was also doing a lot of ordering. They're still doing the ordering, but nobody's holding on to vehicles ahead of time. The chip shortage and all the vehicle, equipment shortages of the last couple of years have like decimated that side. So you're basically, when you put in an order, you're asking them to build you your car.
Right.
So until they have time for it to roll down the
Right,
assembly
there's no
line.
surplus you're ordering from the factory, and you're waiting on that.
And people don't realize, like the chief was just saying, we need a new Ford Explorer. Well, there's one at Liberty Chevrolet. Well, or not Liberty Chevrolet, but say York Ford. Well, we can't go buy that one because it's not outfitted properly to do municipal work and run it the way that they run it. So we have to wait. This is the process that we're left with at this point. I was talking to a town administrator at the MMA conference on Friday who was saying that she's seen other towns near her out in the western part of the state not just miss their windows that they'd put in an order, but then they weren't deemed a high priority, so they got pushed down the list to the next year, and then the next year, the companies come back and said, well, the price changed. I need another $8,000 now, or you can't have this vehicle. We haven't seen that yet here, but that is happening in some parts of the state.
It's like a Cybertruck.
So,
Just need to make a mention on a couple things here. So debt service, you can see it's the same. So we didn't have the figures ready for the debt that the bond that we just approved. So it's probably going to increase maybe $100,000 in that. And then the indirect costs, which are mostly driven by salary cost, also that will adjust.
Okay.
Just wanted to make mention of that.
so the last page in the presentation here is, I know we always get lots of questions about where we're at with free cash. So this screen up here that Wendy put together, I think is very helpful for all of us. So on September 13th of this year, we had free cash certified at $6.232 million. We had two budget articles in the STM warrant totaling around $2,013,000. So that brought our FY24 balance down to $4,219,631. Of that, we have to keep 5% of our operating budget in a reserve in free cash. So that equals $2,123,160, which meant it left us with available free cash of $2,096,471 for use in the FY25 budget. We have proposed $1.1 million in capital expenditures. We have proposed $147,671 in retirement payouts. We're requesting $125,000 in form-based zoning consultation. We have proposed $125,000 for OPEB. We're required to put $82,781 in the general stabilization, and we're recommending $235,000 back to the capital stabilization, which would still leave us $270,000 more than we're required to keep in free cash for the year. So that's the good news.
Yeah.
So our stabilization transfer keeps us
Current at 5%. So our free cash, our stabilization cash policies want us to have 5% in free cash and 5% in general stabilization. So 5% of that year's operating budget in each. So we have 10% on reserve to call on if there's an emergency.
So we'll have 2.4 in there.
And the OPEB transfer, isn't that a yearly thing, or is that one time?
4.2. I'm sorry?
The OPEB transfer, isn't that a yearly?
We do it pretty much every year.
We do it every year.
Oh, so why are we using, I thought we were not using free cash for a yearly,
So, again, we've had a couple things that we talked about earlier in the budget that were kind of unforeseen things that we have to handle this year. It's not forbidden to use free cash for OPEB. Lots of towns do it. We have tried really hard in the past to not do it. But when we talked about, some of the other decisions that we've made, some of the other things that we've recommended, if you want to fund the $125,000 for OPEB out of the general fund and not use free cash, then we're going to have to cut $125,000 somewhere else in the operating budget. So the budget that we propose to you is balanced, it's fair, it fits within our financial policies. We're trying really hard to do all the things that you asked us to do. But, if you say, go back and cut $125,000, then we may say then we can't plan to transition a planning director. We may not propose to improve and add the position for grants and communication. I'm trying to give us everything that we ask for and need, and still be financially responsible.
Joe, in recent years, we've done OPEB from free cash, right?
We've had years that we've done it. I think
We've
last
done
year
it
we
a couple
funded out of
I'm
general.
pretty sure last year we did.
Yeah, so it's not totally foreign to us, and as I said, many communities do it. A lot of communities don't. We've consistently said, no, we're definitely going to do 125, and we haven't really proposed to do more because we haven't been wanting to stretch ourselves, but other communities just do it as a free cash thing. If they get a lot of free cash decisions, they'll put more in there, but next year they put less. We're trying to at least be consistent with what we put in, so.
Nice job, Joe.
Any other questions? Comments?
I think it's the best slide deck we've seen in a long time. It's a great slide deck.
Yeah, I think as far as signs of things that come with the new, and I'm gonna forget the, what is it, the GFOA?
GFOA. Yeah, the Government Finance Officers Association template style budget. So, yeah, part of the reason that you don't have the reams of paper spreadsheets in front of you, like we want to get you to start looking at the budget the way the GFOA budget's going to express it to the community. Right down to the color scheme and all the pictures, the graphs, those will all be part of the GFOA style budget. We've got a handful of things left to close the loop on with our consultants at the Collins Center at UMass Boston, and they have said that they'll have us the new GFOA budget format, both in a form that we can print out and a form we can put on the website electronically to be viewed by everybody by the first week in March. So a full week before, a full month before town meeting, we'll be able to have the new budget document, and that's what we'll use to build the budget going forward. This was a lot of work this year because we were doing the spreadsheets behind the scenes to keep everybody moving, and we were also trying to incorporate all of that stuff into the new template. We tried to do that last year with a little less help, and we got further along this year. So we're finally going to get it done. I've only been trying to do that since I got here 5 years ago. So it's nice that we're finally going to get it.
You know, what's even better than the presentation and the preparation and all the hard work is how strong financially the town is. All right, and it popped up, what was it, a month ago when the auditors came in to talk to us. So I think one of the reasons that we have such a good credit rating speaks to how the town is run, and it really speaks to sort of the management of the town. Some folks to my left who've been doing this for years and years, John and Sean. So I think the town is really strong. The policies and the protocols are really strong, and the auditors have recognized it. And obviously, bringing Wendy in has brought us up to another level, so I wanted to thank her as well. And the partnership with the schools, which is our largest expense, is really strong as well. So I just wanted to reflect on that. And all the department heads, you know, deserve a round of applause. They're all sort of professional managers who really care about what they do, but they also care a lot about their people. So I'd like to pass that on as well. So anyway, just well done.
Yeah, not to be redundant with the kind of praise fest here, but you know, I think this is a great budget this year. The asks aren't huge, but they're needed, what we've asked for. I think it's a good budget to present the town meeting, and I think people are gonna see that it's pretty bare bones, but we're still getting improvements. And even though we have a high tax rate in town, because we're mostly residential, people in town come to expect a level of services, and we're really providing above and beyond a lot of times. And that comes down to our department heads and our employees and volunteers that really make it all work. So really appreciate everybody coming out tonight. I know you didn't really feel like coming to a selectmen meeting tonight probably, but we appreciate it.
They preferred this over coming in on a Saturday, so.
Yeah,
I think this works out, I think. No,
We can come Saturday if you guys want to too. No takers.
I agree with everything you and John just said. I mean, we have exceptional department heads here. For a small town, we've been able to keep good people in strong positions of leadership for a long time. I certainly couldn't do what I do without them. Wendy remarked to me 6 months in, she couldn't believe how strong our department heads were and how diligent they were about maintaining their budgets and not overspending and not, you know, doing anything that would upset the apple cart, so to speak. Not exactly the environment she came from. So so she was really thrilled. She's very thrilled to be working with the folks that we have here, and most of the folks have been here since I got here, before I got here. We've had a couple, you know, notable changes, and I think that those have worked out, and we've got a good team working together right now. So we appreciate the support that we get from the boards, the guidance and the advice that we get, but mostly the support. It helps.
Anything from anybody on the boards, more comments or questions? Anything any of you want to add?
You can just keep going.
Just keep going.
Oh, stop. No,
We overdid it. I think the town clerk office is, no. been said nicely. Appreciate you both
Yeah.
calling that out. It was great work all around.
If nothing else, if you want to entertain a motion to adjourn first, we can go that.
I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn the FinCom.
So moved. Second?
And if Christina's still on, you have to do a roll call.
That's right. Because I can see Christina out there. Yeah, there she is.
Christina Shankar Grove, aye.
John Prulidge, aye. Harry Philip, aye.
And John McGrath, aye. So we're adjourned.
And same with the select board. Anybody want to make a motion?
I move that we adjourn. Oh, that's someone else's job.
I wanted to make one comment though before we adjourn, Sean. I mean, I think
Yeah.
we didn't talk about it yet, but I think you told me about Duke, that we lost
Oh,
Duke.
yeah, that's a
But I
great
think
thing.
you just mentioned,
I
he's
meant to
been-
mention it at the
he's
top of
been
the
here to more
meeting.
meetings than anybody, and I just wanted to take a moment to.
Yeah, he'll be sorely missed, just a great guy and a fixture here at the building during our meetings and many other things at the fire and police, and very supportive of pretty much everything in the community. Duke will really be missed.
We never found his paddle either.
As Kane.
I know.
Yeah.
We'll have to have one made now in his honor.
Thanks, Sean.
So there was a motion. Was there a second?
Second.
Second? All right. All those in favor to adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Thanks.
Good night.
Select board, don't leave. We got a lot of paperwork, a lot of money to handle.
I know we need new business.
I'll take the 100.